Hello, everyone, and welcome to CPAC Now, America Uncanceled. I'm here with my beautiful wife, Mercedes, and we're loving doing the show. 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Go to our website at conservative.org, click the icon, and watch us 3 times a week. We're bringing all the guests you want to hear from.
Yeah, the very best guests. And I got to tell you, it's been really fun for us, and we're so glad you all are watching because, you're part of the CPAC family. And we want to make sure that you're receiving good news analysis as much as we can talk to you about what's happening, what issues that matter. But what an issue that's happening that's really impacting our country is this overwhelming border crisis that the Biden folks refuse to address. Jen Psaki, the White House press secretary, called it a big problem and literally blamed the Trump administration for what's happening at the border. And we got to tell you, these Custom Border Patrol agents, they are overwhelmed. We saw our Republican leaders go down to the border this week. And I think what you're seeing is something that's catastrophic. I mean, and the fact is that the Biden administration, they don't know how to handle this.
They have no idea what they're doing. So we have a great guest to start this conversation, the House Minority Whip, Mr. Steve Scalise. Whip Scalise, thanks for being with us.
Hey, Matt and Mercedes, it's great to be with y'all. And by the way, congratulations on a phenomenal CPAC. It was so successful that YouTube's trying to take down Trump's speech because so many people watched it. But great job pulling that off in the middle of a pandemic, going to Florida where everything's open.
Yeah, it was the right decision. And the other state that's getting so much right is Texas. But it's sad to see what's going on at the border.
It's really sad. It's a disgrace. This is Biden's border crisis. That there's total chaos and mayhem at the border, but there's denial, a complete denial over in the White House. The fact that they won't even admit it's a problem, and then they're trying to blame Trump. Well, if it's not a problem, why are you blaming Trump? Trump's policies are what secured America's border. Just the stay in Mexico, remain in Mexico policy was very effective at saying, if somebody wants to come here and they have an asylum claim, wait in Mexico while we process it. Mexico was even carrying that out. And now they've gotten rid of that. They put a magnet saying America's border's open. They just passed this crazy $1.9 trillion spending bill where felons in prison and illegals who walk across the border illegally get $1,400 taxpayer funded checks. You wonder why you're seeing thousands of people a day come across, young kids that are being sexually assaulted along the way by cartels and coyotes on their trek to the United States. They can't even be processed and housed and fed in these facilities because so many are coming in. Border Patrol agents are literally saying it's, quote, total mayhem at the border. And yet President Biden couldn't reverse it today if he just goes back to what Trump was doing that was working, not just building the wall, but also remain in Mexico policy. Catch and release, they brought it back. It's yet another magnet that tells people to come to America illegally, and it's a disaster at the border.
And you tweeted out, Congressman, about the fact that you've seen that Biden saying, well, everyone needs to have a COVID test to come into America, but obviously that doesn't include the border. So what's your reaction in terms of where Biden is in terms of also what we're seeing? You're seeing them housing 3,000 migrant teens at the Dallas Convention Center. You're seeing the Border Patrol agents under a lot of stress. Texas and these border states not getting the assistance that they need. Your response?
It sounds like Laredo are completely being overrun. Think about this as a juxtaposition. In just the first few months of President Biden's administration, they're saying our borders are open, yet schools are closed. Kids can't go to schools in most school systems because the unions want to take your money but not educate your child in the classroom. And yet they're opening up the borders and they're saying even without a COVID test or even if you're COVID positive, you can come into the United States. But in many states, you can't even go to your favorite restaurant and your kids can't go to school. This makes no sense. People are livid. They're watching this. And the Biden administration's in complete denial because they won't even let him do a press conference because they're trying to hide this guy. He's president of the United States. We Americans deserve answers. Americans deserve this policy to be reversed. The president can do it today. We're calling on President Biden to reverse this policy, secure America's border, get back to a functioning legal immigration system, not one that encourages thousands of people a day to come across illegally who can't even be taken care of. It's a humanitarian crisis.
Mr. Scalise, there's so much talk about how American companies and so many dominant voices have joined the woke mob in supporting all this type of terrible policy. When we look at what's going on at the border alone, you brought up something: illegals coming over our border, getting $1,400 stimulus checks. Trump secures the southern border, starts building a wall, can't complete it in time. Biden reverses all of those policies. Tell me, you talked to a lot of members, obviously on the House and Republican side, and on the Republican side and the Democratic side. Any Democrat from a purple area must know this issue alone could lose them re-election.
Look, a lot of Democrats in these swing districts across the country are scared to death of Nancy Pelosi's socialist agenda because she's pushing it really hard. No, look, as long as they're voting for it, they're going to get defeated in their election next year.
That's right.
Because the country is not socialist. The Democrats might be in Washington, maybe California and New York are implementing socialist policies, but most of America is not there. And they don't want our country to become what California has become, where people are fleeing. New York, 300,000 people in the last year fled to states like Florida and Texas because they're open. They happen to be run by Republican governors. They have no income tax. They're fleeing high tax and high regulation and crazy leadership policy states to go to conservative-led states with low taxes and insane common sense regulations. There's a big difference, and I think you can see the difference between the two parties on display in these states.
Yeah, I think you mentioned New York, and you are seeing them flee to these other states. As I've talked to several Floridians, I'm from Florida originally, they say, please don't bring your politics to my state. So I couldn't agree with you more. But we also have this growing scandal in New York with the New York governor, Andrew Cuomo. Obviously, he was seen recently with a nice little warm blanket, a dog, and a beer. And so that image alone shows how he is under so much stress, not only because of these sexual allegations, but also the other piece of this, which is the cover-up, the nursing home scandal. Yet you're still seeing Democrats not totally on board on telling him he needs to resign. Democrats like Speaker Nancy Pelosi, who the other day said, well, the governor should look into his heart. It sounds to me like that's a song that you would hear on the radio. But let me get your reaction to what you think needs to happen. They're talking about Cuomo resigning, impeaching Cuomo. Where do you think this ends up?
Mercedes, this is like the walls are closing in on Governor Cuomo. And I think the people in New York are finally seeing what we've known for a long time. Look, we started talking about this nursing home scandal back in the summer of last year when thousands of seniors were murdered by a policy that should have never been put in place by Cuomo. He went against the federal guidelines and forced seniors who were COVID positive from hospitals back into nursing homes, even though they couldn't take care of them. Thousands of people died who shouldn't have. And the media covered it up in New York for a long time. But now people are starting to see both the sexual assault scandal as well as the nursing home scandal. He ought to resign. But frankly, you look at Kamala Harris, when she was running for president, she said she believed the women who accused Joe Biden of sexual harassment. Where's Kamala today on these allegations that are now up to 6 different women with very credible allegations, as well as the nursing home scandal? Both warrant his resignation.
Yeah, and it's not just Governor Cuomo. Obviously, we're seeing Governor Murphy. We're seeing what they did in some of these other big blue states like Illinois and others in California. I think it's unfair to say that, they did anything intentionally to end these people's lives, but they need to be held accountable and responsible. Do you get the sense that the American people are beginning to realize that the common sense Republican policies of Texas and Florida are what we need?
Look, Matt, I think that people are watching really close what's happening in different states and recognizing while we had a pandemic, some governors handled it one way and other governors handled it very, very poorly, a different way. And you can see the different approaches. And the conservative approaches, by and large, worked much better to keep economies going, to let kids get back to school safely, following protocols where the governors in these failed Democrat states shut the states down, bankrupted businesses, keeping students out of the classroom, which is doing long-term damage And oh, by the way, their health outcomes are worse in many cases. And so they get bailed out by the federal government in this $1.9 trillion bill, where the states that did well are getting penalized by Pelosi and Biden for doing things right.
You know, Whip, the other thing that we're seeing is that these red states, Texas, Florida, Tennessee, Iowa, Ohio, the list goes on, took the right steps on election reform, not to keep anybody from voting, but to make sure that lists were cleaned and scrubbed, that there's voter ID, and that if you vote by mail, someone checks your signature. H.R. 1 would upend all that, including the reforms that were undertaken in Florida. Georgia is now trying to clean up its act because really, in my opinion, Donald Trump actually won Florida, and they're trying to clean up their act. And now you have all these big companies coming out against the Republican reforms. What do we do when we're fighting both the Democratic Party and the Chamber of Commerce?
You know, when you look at the woke mob, as you can see, you know, you've got such a difference. California law, for example, Pelosi wants to make California's law the national standard. So states like Louisiana, Florida that require picture ID, they ban you from requiring picture ID to vote. You got to show picture ID to get into the Democrat Party's convention when they hold conventions. But to vote, they say you can't check signatures, same-day voter registration, all kind of fraud. Oh, and by the way, in their bill, they also give taxpayer dollars, federal dollars,
Right.
6-to-1 match going into political campaigns. So dollars that come out of Washington's treasury that could be used to pay down the debt instead go to political campaigns at a 6-to-1 match. Do you want to be paying for your opponent's negative political campaign ads with tax dollars? That's what's in this bill.
It's such an outrage. And another outrageous situation that we're seeing are the secret tax hikes that we saw in the COVID relief bill, where they were eliminating the pass-throughs that impact so many small businesses. We know that President Biden is also looking to push a tax hike, one of the biggest tax hikes that we've seen in 3 decades. And that's not going to stop. Infrastructure plan, climate plan. We got to pay for all these things. It's money, money, money. So Congressman Scalise, final question. How are we going to be able to survive the Biden administration and these crazy tax hikes that we know will have a negative impact on our economy and on small business owners?
I'll tell you what, it's devastating how quickly they're moving with the socialist agenda of Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden through Congress. You know, I think people recognize we've got to take the House back next year, fire Nancy Pelosi. But in the meantime, how much damage can they do? If you talk about not only the spending bill and some of the other devastating policies, like what the president's doing at the border with the Keystone Pipeline, with energy policy, but now they want to raise taxes. And this idea that it's only going to be the billionaires, I think we all know that's not true. It's going to ultimately hit middle-class families. When they start talking about raising taxes, because the socialists are writing the bills, think about it. Bernie Sanders is chairman of the Senate Budget Committee. Do you really think Bernie Sanders is going to stop before it goes to the middle class and they raise everybody's taxes and really destroy the job creation that was going on under President Trump, where we were rebuilding America's middle class? We were bringing companies back from foreign lands who had left. Those companies will leave again if we go up to a high tax rate like we had before. Lower taxes actually work. Just compare New York and California to Texas and Florida. High tax versus low state. That's where businesses are going, where taxes and regulations make sense. That's where people, by the way, are going to the hundreds of thousands. The last thing we want to do is turn states like Florida and Texas back to California and New York.
Look,
that's what they're trying to do at the federal level.
It's a great point. And, you know, we have so many entrepreneurs, people that are really involved in making investments in our economy. They are flooding to red states. Big corporate America got a lot of tax cuts under Trump, under the bill that passed, because we had become uncompetitive with the globe. Now that the Biden administration is going to turn its focus on raising those taxes back on these corporations that are doing business in America again, do you think we can build back this coalition between corporate America and the Republican Party, or are they too woke?
Well, while they're woke, I think they also don't want to go broke, and that's what will happen if the Biden policies take effect. So,
That's right.
So it's a choice they're going to have to make. I think they're going to come back home and recognize that sane policies rooted in conservative principles have always worked, and we're rebuilding our country. Let's keep it going.
That is the best soundbite of the whole day.
That's right.
Okay, we're going to be using
There must be a reason why he's the whip. I think there's a reason.
When I hang out with you guys, we always come up with good stuff.
I'm telling you, but I have to say, we could spend the whole day talking with you, and we really enjoy your commentary and your analysis and your leadership. And we need you to keep fighting for all of us. And we greatly thank you for all you do for not only the people in Louisiana, but obviously for all of us who are trying to stand strong and not be silenced by the left.
Look, America's worth fighting for. Y'all do it every day. CPAC leads the charge to bring conservative minds together to come up with better ideas. Now we got to go fight and get those ideas in motion.
Amen, brother.
Amen, brother.
Thank you for being on. That's Congressman Steve Scalise from the great state of Louisiana. And stay with us. We're going to be talking about the Grammys. I don't know. Did you watch it? I didn't watch it.
No.
Never.
That would be a negative.
Nada. All right, we'll be right back. Welcome back to CPAC Now, America Uncanceled. That was a great interview with Congressman Steve Scalise.
Great man. Yep.
I know, he really is. We could have stayed on talking to him, but we've got to get to some, let's see, a show that happened maybe on Sunday where they give big awards. Hint, hint, the Grammys that nobody watched. I don't know, Matt, did we have a chance? We didn't have a chance.
I did not watch it. And this is the thing about award shows is they've become highly offensive, vulgar. I mean, the bumping and grinding that went up on the stage might be titillating to some people, but the Grammys is supposed to be about recognizing...
Tittling, that's an interesting
Titillating,
word.
not tittling. They might have been tittling. But anyway, it's supposed to be about recognizing great artistry.
Talent, right.
And I'm sorry, there is some talent in what they were doing, but it's not great artistry. And the viewers are showing it because, their ratings are in the toilet. And so is their performance. Yeah. And I think a little over 8 million people watched the Grammys, which is terrible.
You sent out a great tweet saying that 31 million people watched Trump's CPAC speech on TV live. CPAC is more impactful than the Grammys, even when grinding their Grammys. That's good. You're becoming a poet. I love it.
So the point is this, which is, as we've said to you, YouTube tried to pull down the president's speech. Steve Scalise just reminded you all that YouTube has banned the president's speech, but yet 31 million people watched it live. That doesn't even capture all the people that watched our programming over the 3 days online. This is a huge impact. You're having a bigger impact than either the Grammys or the Oscars or the Emmys at CPAC. Now, they wouldn't tell you that, but that's the fact. And by the way, Emmys, I think it's time to take back one of your awards. I think Mr. New York Governor needs to have his award taken back.
Maybe he can sell it on eBay. But let me...
Why don't we get an Emmy? We have the powerful numbers, and of course, we don't even get nominated.
No, but I think one of the interesting things, I was talking to our oldest, Viana. Her friends were over at our house, and I asked them about the Grammys. I said, did you all watch it? They said, yes, actually, we did. But when the Cardi B performance came on, they said we had to turn off the television. It was X-rated. It was grotesque. So these are teenage girls who, love music. I mean, our daughters love to play instruments or constantly singing. It's literally like the Von Schlapps over at our house. But they look to these entertainers for inspiration. And what we're finding is that this is not about inspiration anymore. This is about and I'm, fine, freedom of expression, freedom of speech. But the fact is these entertainers are accountable for their really dark messages.
The messaging in the music is terrible. And think about it. These are smart young women who are turning off these female performers who are famous, who are part of this whole zeitgeist of the culture.
Right.
And they're turning them off, which is a great testament to this, to young women around the country. I mean, this is why their ratings are so bad. The American people are not prudes. The American people have accepted so much more on their television set than ever, but there's still just boundaries between smut and something that can actually be good for you. If you actually use your TV set and say, you know what, I will watch things that make me a better person or make me smarter. The sad thing about television is there's very little content that actually meets that standard. And I think that's a standard that we all need to remind ourselves that we should meet.
Right. Well, I mean, they want to cancel Dumbo. They want to cancel Peter Pan. But they don't want to cancel
Dr.
the Grammys. YouTube wants to take President Trump's speech off, yet they allow the Grammys to have these performances. So, I mean, I just think that there's such a huge hypocrisy when it comes to what's happening in the Grammys and the leftists and how
look,
they
they're
want
even
their
coming
content.
after our great classical movies. There was this whole conversation about Gone with the Wind. Good people can have a difference of opinion on whether that is a movie worth watching. It's a long movie. But I would just say this, isn't it crazy that the woke mob is telling us to watch the Grammys and telling us not to watch great classic movies just because those classic movies reiterate some things about society that are wrong.
Yeah.
I think sometimes in watching a great movie and having that conversation with your kids, you actually teach them more. I don't know what you could possibly learn from watching the Grammys. Other than that, wearing a mask and socially distancing doesn't work. There wasn't too much social distancing going on that stage, to say the least.
Yeah, and but here's the deal. Matt's a big movie watcher. I'm not. I'm more of
She
like,
hates movies.
Yeah, so we have a difference of opinion there. But you know what?
But unless it's a English rom-com or
I do love
period
the English,
piece, then
yes.
she's a binge watcher. So
a little bit, yeah, that would be right. And we'll share with you at some point some of our favorite movies. I think that would be a fun segment to do, and you all can chime in and let us know what you all like to watch as well. But let's remember, March is Women's History Month, and you know, you're the father of 5 daughters, so you get a lot of this girl power thing in your house.
You're going to give me an award? Is that what you're going to do? You're going to
for
say
putting up with the women in your life. But your mom was a big inspiration in your life. She was definitely such a strong pillar. Tell them about your mom, Sue Schlapp.
Oh, this is a little bit of a surprise, but my mom was a tennis pro. Those of you who are watching from Kansas know this, but she was a tennis pro at a time when women didn't really do that profession. It was all young guys. And my mom. And as a young man, that was always a little bit strange. And, you know, she had to deal with her own issues growing up, including in one of her jobs, one of the members told her she shouldn't be unhappy in her job because she makes a lot of money for a woman. And these were the things that have changed so much in our society. My mom was a real trailblazer. She would have at some point probably considered herself a feminist. She probably aligned herself with a lot of people that were for women's empowerment. But, you know, she finds herself the biggest conservative and the biggest Trump supporter because she sees that movement as being taken over by people who actually don't want the best things for women. I think if you ask my mom what the best thing she did in her life, it was not the fact that she was a trailblazer in her profession. And hopefully it would be that she's my mother. So, you know, these are the things that women come in all kinds of, have all kinds of perspectives. And when I think the conservative movement is much more accepting of that than the socialists are.
And let's remember, she started as a tennis pro. She ended up winning the city council seat.
Oh, I forget that. That's right.
Served as vice mayor of Wichita, so in her 60s. So you're never done. So even if you're in your 60s and you want to run for office, local office, do it. Do it, because we need conservative voices across the board in local, state, and federal offices.
And I love the kids, but you know what? Some of these government problems are pretty serious. I'm okay with a 60 and 70-year-old saying, it's my time. I'm ready to run. And that's one of the things that was great about President Trump.
Well, we love Grandma Sue. We celebrate Grandma Sue. She's a big inspiration in our lives. And we also want to celebrate and honor the McFarlands. So KT McFarland, she's on the board of the American Conservative Union.
Lady.
She, talk about a trailblazer in the national security space, just is an incredible woman, someone who I got to spend time with at CPAC. And now her daughter, Fiona, is a state representative in the great state of Florida. She's got a beautiful 1-year-old, and she was also with us at CPAC. And so we want to share with you the interview that we did when we were in Orlando, Florida with KT McFarland. So let's watch.
Our founding fathers understood the nature of government is always to get bigger. It is always to grab more of your rights. And that's why they gave us the right to a political revolution. And that's what happened in 2016. It's the people of America who said, you guys aren't getting the job done. We want a new president, and we want to go in a different direction. And America's done this. We've had these revolutions every 40 years. They've always been led by unexpected leaders, Abraham Lincoln. we've had, the Civil War. That changed America. Teddy Roosevelt, he was a vice president. He was going nowhere. He led a revolution. Ronald Reagan, an actor, he led a revolution. And I realized that the American Revolution that Donald Trump launched was only half full, half finished. We're not done yet. And so I came back to the United States, book in hand, my head back on, and I went back on the air, and I started talking about all the achievements of the Trump administration. And I realized that even after the 2020 election, put aside what happened at the top of the ticket, look what happened all across the country. Republicans, conservatives won. They won on those principles of low taxes, of deregulation, of energy independence, of no foreign wars we can't win, of standing up to China. What it showed me, the American people aren't nuts. The American people don't want to defund the police. The American people don't want to tear down the statues of George Washington. The American people believe in our culture. They believe in our history. But our job is not done. I look at the Biden administration, and I'm old enough to remember. Jimmy Carter, anybody remember Jimmy Carter? Okay, well, Joe Biden, he's Jimmy Carter 2.0. He is going to raise taxes. He's going to regulate everything. Energy prices are going to go through the roof. How do you like $6 a gallon of gas? Oh, that's going to look like a bargain by the time he's done. He's going to not stand up to China, and we're going to be just where we were at the end of the Carter administration, where he couldn't even rescue Americans who were held hostage in Iran. Anyway, I think that Donald Trump is not finished with this revolution. And so I called him last night. And I wasn't sure I was actually talking to him. And I said, Mr. President, is that you? Because he picked up right away. And he said, yeah, KT, it's me. I'm here for you. This is Donald Trump. I'm here for you. And I said, Mr. President, I'm at CPAC. And there are a lot of people who are discouraged because they think that it's over. Where's the Trump revolution? And you know what President Trump said? He said, I'm going to talk about the future. I'm going to talk about how we win in 2022, how we take the White House back in 2024. And so I hung up the phone and I thought, gosh, he gets it. The revolution is not done. We are the deplorable people in the middle, the smarty pants guys in Washington who aren't all that smart, who are going to now be shown exactly what they should have been shown in 2020, that they can't keep us down. Our founding fathers gave us the right to a political revolution, and we are seizing that moment. I just want to, thank you. I want to finish with telling you an old ballad I came across. You know, in the Western Highlands of Scotland and the Hebrides Islands, there's nothing to do but read. And so I came across an old book, and it had a ballad in it, and it kept me going. It's really something that inspires me to this day, and I hope it inspires you. It says, I am hurt, but I am not slain. I will lay me down and bleed a while, and then I will rise and fight again. And I think that is where America is today. I think that's where President Trump is today. And I think that is the rest of my life. I am going to fight for this nation and fight for our rights. Thank you very much for the honor.
That was a great interview with KT McFarland. We just love her and her family. She's such a strong conservative woman. And we will continue to honor our great women during Women's History Month. So stay with us. We have our show tomorrow, CPAC Now, America UnCanceled at 7 p.m. Eastern. We'll have some more great guests, and we thank you for watching. Have a great night.